They said the Greek navy was finished. They said its ships were too old, its sailors too tired, its future already written in surrender. And when the German command saw one outdated Greek destroyer moving alone across the Aegean, they laughed. But what they didn't know was that inside that steel hull lived a crew with nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. Men who had seen their homeland invaded, their families scattered, their flag torn down. And yet, they refused to kneel. That destroyer wasn't just a ship, it was a promise that Greece would not go quietly into the night. Before we begin, hit like to support these powerful historical stories, and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps these forgotten voices echo through time. In April of 1941, as German forces swept across Greece with brutal precision, most of Europe believed the Greek navy had no role left to play. The Luftwaffe ruled the skies, the Wehrmacht dominated the land, and the Mediterranean seemed locked under Axis control. But in a small port, still scarred from bombing raids, the Greek destroyer Vasilissa Olga, known as Olga, was preparing for one last series of missions. She wasn't the biggest ship. She wasn't the newest. Her engines coughed before they roared. Her steel plates rattled on rough seas. And yet, the crew that manned her carried an unbreakable resolve. For them, surrender wasn't an option, not even a thought. Commander Georgios Vouvaris, a man known for standing stone still during air raids, held a belief that bordered on madness. If Greece has fallen on land, then we will fight at sea. As long as one Greek ship sails, Greece still breathes. The Germans didn't know that a ship like Olga could still fight. And the British certainly didn't expect her to become one of the most lethal hunters in the Mediterranean. The first real test came when German convoys began using the Aegean Sea to move troops and supplies to newly captured territories. The German High Command believed the waters were uncontested. After all, what threat could a few damaged Allied ships pose? But on a moonless night, under a sky bruised by smoke and war, Olga sailed out alone. The sea was black, still and unforgiving. Every wave sounded like a gunshot. Every shadow felt like an ambush. Most ships would have turned back. But Olga's crew pushed on. Hours into the night, the radar officer spotted something faint, then clearer, then unmistakable. A German convoy, 3 transports, 2 escort vessels, a formation confident, relaxed, and absolutely unprepared. Inside Olga, tension tightened like a fist. Men whispered prayers. The engine's hum felt like a heartbeat. Commander Vouvaris stepped onto the bridge, looked through his binoculars and whispered, "They think we are dead. Tonight, we remind them we are not." Olga cut through the water like a ghost. No lights, no radio, just the sea. And the breath of men who knew every second mattered. At 2,000 meters, the first German lookout finally spotted the silhouette. Too late, the order thundered through Olga. "Fire!" Her main guns erupted. Shells streaked across the water like burning spears. The first German transport, loaded with ammunition, took a direct hit. The explosion tore open the night sky, lighting the sea with fire and metal. Panic spread across the German formation. Searchlights swung wildly, alarms blared. But Olga was already repositioning. Her crew moved like a single body. Years of discipline, fear, and fury merging into perfect coordination. The second volley hit the convoy's escort ship square across the bow, ripping it open. The Aegean, moments ago still and silent, now roared with chaos. On shore, German command received the first scrambled message. "We are under attack. Unknown enemy destroyer. Taking heavy fire. Request air support." The German officer reading it reportedly laughed, thinking it was a malfunction or Greek propaganda. But the laughter turned to dread as more messages came. "Convoy burning. We are hit again. Losing men. Ship listing. Send aircraft immediately." By the time German bombers finally took flight, It was already too late, because Olga wasn't done. She swung back around, guns still smoking, engines screaming, and delivered one final barrage. A barrage that would echo through German naval reports for months. This was only the beginning. Olga's most shocking victories, her most daring maneuvers, and her ultimate fate are still ahead. When the sun finally rose over the Aegean, the sea still burned in patches. Smoke curled into the pale morning sky like black ribbons. The German convoy, once confident, orderly, precise, was no more. One transport lay half submerged, flames still licking at its broken hull. Another drifted sideways, a metal carcass. The escort ship, torn open by Olga's barrage, was gone entirely, swallowed by the sea. Word spread quickly, across the islands occupied by Axis forces, across Luftwaffe airfields, across German naval headquarters. A single phrase echoed again and again. A Greek destroyer did this? The disbelief wasn't arrogance. It was fear disguised as confusion. Because if one small, outdated Greek ship could dismantle a German convoy, then what else could the Allies be hiding? But while the Germans scrambled for answers, the men aboard Olga didn't celebrate. They were exhausted, bruised, smoke-stained. But they knew something the Germans hadn't realized yet. This was just the first blow. Over the next weeks, Olga became a phantom in the Mediterranean, a ghost that attacked, vanished, and returned again. Convoy after convoy reported the same thing. A single destroyer. Impossible accuracy, striking from the dark. She stalked the Aegean with the precision of a hunter and the rage of a nation fighting for breath. German transports were forced to reroute. Italian commanders began requesting double escorts. Aircraft patrols tripled, yet Olga remained untouched. The ship was aging, but the men were not. Their determination sharpened with every mission. They loaded shells with mechanical speed. They tracked enemy formations with silent focus. They fired with a conviction that no Navy manual could teach. To them, every German ship sunk was a message to the world. Greece is wounded, but not broken. One night, Olga received a distress call. A British commando unit on a nearby island was pinned down, surrounded, and awaiting execution at dawn. Their extraction was deemed impossible. The Germans occupied the air. The Italians controlled the nearby waters, and the island's cliffs were too steep for a safe approach. Every British officer said the same thing. No ship can reach them in time. But Commander Vouvouris wasn't British. He was Greek, and he didn't believe in impossible. "Plot a course," he ordered. "Tonight, we save them." Olga approached the island under complete blackout. No lights, no radio, only the stars and the whisper of waves. German patrol boats circled the coastline. Searchlights carved white scars into the darkness. Yet Olga slipped through. At the base of the cliffs, small boats waited, manned by Greek sailors who volunteered knowing the odds. Under machine gun fire, they rowed toward the shore. They loaded the wounded first, then the commandos. Then the last man, nearly unconscious, was pulled aboard as tracer rounds tore up the sand behind him. The Germans opened fire on Olga as she turned away. Shells splashed around her like exploding geysers. But the moment she cleared the island's shadow, her guns roared back. Her gunners hit a German patrol boat so cleanly that British reports later described it as a shot no battleship could have placed better. When Olga finally rejoined the Allied fleet, the rescued commandos stood on deck, staring at the Greek flag rising against the dawn. One of them whispered, "We were saved by lions." By now, Olga wasn't just a threat. She was a disruption. Her name appeared on intercepted German transmissions. Destroyer Olga active in sector. Convoys rerouted due to Greek destroyer. Priority target, sink at all costs. They began assigning Stuka dive bombers specifically to hunt her. Patrol flights increased, destroyer escorts doubled. Every time she sailed, she was entering a world full of crosshairs. And still, she fought. In late summer of 1943, Olga intercepted another convoy, this one larger than any before. 3 escorts, multiple transports, armed to the teeth. The German commander believed this formation was unbeatable. He believed Olga wouldn't dare attack. He was wrong, because on that night, Olga wasn't just a destroyer. She was a symbol, and symbols don't retreat. Commander Vuvaris studied the convoy's formation, then calmly said, "We go straight through them." What followed was a battle that would become legend. A battle so fierce, so vicious, that even German survivors later described it as a single ship fighting like an entire fleet. And the sea, under moonlight, glowed red. For months, German commanders had circled Olga's name on their maps, underlined it in red, and spoken it in briefings with quiet irritation and growing fear. But on a stormy morning in September 1943, the hunters finally got their chance. At dawn, a German reconnaissance aircraft spotted her moving between 2 islands, alone, exposed, and without air cover. Within minutes, the report reached a Luftwaffe airfield, and the order was immediate. All available Stukas, launch. Target: the Greek destroyer Olga. The sky filled with the scream of dive bombers. Every pilot had been briefed. Every gunner knew the name. This wasn't just an attack, it was revenge. As Olga cut through rough seas, her crew heard it before they saw it. A distant hum, growing louder, sharp, mechanical, aggressive. Commander Vuvaris stepped onto the bridge. His face went still. The horizon darkened. Dozens of Stukas were descending like metal hawks, their sirens, Jericho trumpets, howling across the water. "Battle stations! Gunners, up! Brace!" The first bombs fell like thunder. Explosions erupted around the ship. Columns of seawater shot upward like geysers. The deck rattled violently. Men stumbled, caught themselves, and ran faster. Machine guns opened fire. Tracer rounds streaked into the sky. Olga fought back. Every gun, every barrel, every hand. She hit a Stuka on the first pass. Its wing sheared, engine burning, spiraling into the sea with a violent splash. Another dove too close. Her gunners tore it apart. But the Stukas kept coming, wave after wave. One bomb struck close to her starboard side. The shockwaves slammed the hull and threw sailors to the deck. Water surged onto the bow. The ship heaved but held. Inside the engine room, boilers roared, pipes shook, and men covered in sweat kept Olga's heart beating. They shouted commands over the deafening rumble. "Pressure rising! Hold it steady! Don't let her die!" Above them, the crew loaded shells with blistered hands. Some gunners bled from shrapnel cuts, but refused to leave their posts. Olga was taking damage, but so were the Stukas. Another bomber came screaming down. Her port side guns tracked it, locked on, and fired a point-blank volley. The aircraft exploded mid-air, its flaming wreckage raining into the sea. For a brief moment, the sky fell silent. But it wasn't over. The last group of dive bombers swept in from the sun, blinding, fast, deadly. They had studied her. They knew her weak points, and they aimed for one place, the center of the ship. Commander Vuvaris grabbed the railing. His voice boomed across the deck. "Hold your fire! Wait for them!" The gunners tracked the descending shapes. Sweat dripped, trigger fingers trembled. The Stukas dove. Lower, lower. Sirens screaming. Now! Olga unleashed everything. The air turned into a wall of gunfire. One Stuka burst into flames. Another veered off, trailing smoke. A third lost its dive angle and splashed into the waves. But one bomber, just one, slipped through. The bomb hit just behind Olga's bridge. A deafening blast. Steel twisted. Fire erupted. Men were thrown through the air. The ship groaned, its hull shuddering under the impact. But Olga refused to sink. Flames shot across the deck. Smoke burned the eyes and lungs of every man still standing. Commander Vuvaris, wounded but upright, wiped blood from his face. His voice was hoarse but firm. "Keep firing until the skies are empty." And they did, even as the deck burned, even as explosions rocked the hull, even as medics pulled wounded sailors to cover. Olga's guns did not stop. By the time the final Stuka turned away, only half the bombers that attacked her were still airborne. The rest, scattered across the sea, were silent. When the smoke thinned, Olga drifted, wounded but afloat. Her deck was scarred, her guns overheated. Her crew bloodied, but they stood. Every surviving sailor stood, some leaning on the rails, some carrying the wounded, some staring at the sky where death had come and gone. No celebration, only breathless silence. They had survived the deadliest dive bomber assault of the war, a miracle no one expected. But everyone knew the Germans would return. This was not the end. The dawn of September 26, 1943 was strangely calm. No aircraft, no engines, no distant thunder of artillery, just a soft breeze over the Aegean Sea, and the quiet breathing of men who had not slept. Destroyer Vasilissa Olga, wounded from yesterday's attack, lay anchored near Leros, her hull patched, her boilers running unevenly, her ammunition dangerously low. Yet the crew stood ready, bandaged hands on gun grips, faces darkened by smoke, eyes that had seen death and refused to bow to it. Commander Vasilios Vuvaris, leaning on the railing, watched the surface of the water ripple with morning light. He knew the truth. Everyone did. The Germans would return, and this time they would finish what they started. Just after sunrise, a breathless Greek scout raced down from a nearby ridge. He didn't need to speak. His eyes said everything. Behind him, the distant hum of engines began to grow. Low, steady, unmistakable. The Luftwaffe was coming back. Not a squadron, not a wave, a swarm. This was not a hunt. It was an execution. Vuvaris stepped onto the bridge and lifted the microphone to the ship-wide speakers. His voice, steady, warm, unbroken, echoed through every corridor. Men of Olga, today we stand for Greece. We fight until our guns melt. We stay at our posts until the sea takes us. If this is our last day, let it be remembered. No shouts, no cheers, just a brief silence. Then every man moved, fast, precise, fearless. They had accepted their fate. The Luftwaffe descended like a steel hurricane. More than 30 dive bombers, escort fighters circling overhead. Every pilot briefed with one goal: sink the destroyer Olga. No survivors. The first bombs dropped before the ship could even fire. Explosions erupted near her bow. Shrapnel tore through the deck. 2 gunners fell instantly. Smoke burst upward in thick black towers. But Olga did not flinch. Her anti-air guns roared to life. Furious, defiant, unbroken. Tracer fire cut through the sky. Stukas swerved, sirens screaming. One enemy plane burst into flames and spiraled into the sea. But another dove straight at Olga. Its bomb hit the stern, violently. The deck split. A fireball rushed across the ship. Men were thrown into the water. Others clung to burning railings. Yet the guns kept firing. The next wave hit her from the opposite side. More bombs, more fire. More steel tearing apart. Olga's midsection was now a burning furnace. Still, her remaining gunners fought. One Greek sailor, clothes burning, stayed at his machine gun until ammunition ran out. Another kept loading shells with one arm, the other shattered by shrapnel. A young officer dragged 2 wounded men behind cover, then ran back into the open to man an abandoned gun. The captain himself helped pass ammunition crates, coughing from smoke, blood dripping from his forehead. Olga was dying, but she refused to die quietly. The last Stuka dove from directly above. Fast, silent, deadly. No siren, no warning, just a dark silhouette cutting through the rising smoke. Vuvaris looked up and whispered, "So, this is it." The bomb struck the center of the ship, near the engine room. A violent explosion cracked Olga's spine. The hull twisted, the deck split open. Flames shot into the sky. Water rushed in from below. Men were sucked into collapsing compartments. The lights flickered. Once, twice, and died. The ship groaned, a long, deep, metallic cry. Olga was sinking. Commander Vuvaris gave his final order. Abandon ship. His men hesitated. Some refused to leave their guns. Some shouted they would die with their ship. Some wept as they dragged wounded friends toward the water. The sea around Olga was burning, oil and fire swirling on the surface. Yet survivors leapt in anyway, choosing flames over sinking steel. Vuvaris remained on the bridge until the water reached his boots. He looked across the sea. Not with fear, but with the calm dignity of a man who knew he had done everything a commander could do. He whispered his last words, "For Greece, and for my boys." The bridge went under. Olga slipped beneath the waves, proud, defiant, undefeated in spirit. Fishermen pulled survivors from the burning sea. British and Greek troops swam out to rescue the wounded. Men cried, not because they lived, but because their ship did not. Word spread across the Mediterranean. Olga is gone. But something else spread too. Respect. Even German pilots later admitted the truth. The Greek destroyer fought longer and harder than any ship of her size had the right to. Olga went down fighting. She never surrendered. She never backed away. A small Greek destroyer. That humiliated a superpower, and entered history not as a ship, but as a symbol. Today, divers still visit her resting place. Greek sailors still speak her name with pride, and historians still call her the destroyer that refused to die. Because sometimes, victory isn't about surviving. It's about making the world remember how you fought, and Olga ensured that the world would never forget.